So back to the last pending issue. The last pending issue is design standards uses. You may recall this is the now infamous mixed-use ratio conversation. The original text of the ordinance just skipped down and provided the last two sentences of it. So upper floors may be commercial, residential, or a mix of residential and commercial. That was always the case. We just added that as a clarifier. And the mixed-use ratio found in section 150.070 of the code shall not apply to the gateway district. That essentially the council muddled it over and left it as is with the idea of coming back at this meeting to discuss it further. Chris and I, along with the manager, sat down, took a look at this, and tried to see what we were trying to achieve by creating that flexibility in the code. And what we're really trying to achieve is to unshackle the residential and the commercial, which really meant to apply to floors and not square footage. So, but in an abundance of caution, we added the following language to ensure that throughout the overlay district, again, only those 3 blocks in the central business district, we would get meaningful commercial, because throughout the central business district, generally, what the code requires is 1,500 square feet of commercial. And that's fine when you think about the size of the bays along Westwood Drive, which are much narrower properties. In the overlay, you have 2 existing properties and the possibility of putting properties together that could lead to a situation where you don't have necessarily the amount of commercial that you would want. So the following sentence was added. The ground floor shall contain occupiable, air-conditioned space for permitted commercial uses with a minimum depth of 40 feet from the building facade for those portions of the building along road rights-of-way, except for such features as, without limitations, driveways, utility infrastructure, colonnades, and outside dining areas. So essentially, where a commercial property abuts a road, not an alley or a parking lot, but a road, the projects that might come forward are going to be required to provide commercial all along the road rights-of-way at a minimum depth from the edge of the building facade back 40 feet. So you can ensure that at least you're going to get a belt of commercial all the way around.
At this point, it has to be obvious to all of you that many, many residents share my concern and even outrage that the actions you have taken were not done with the general knowledge of the people. It's obvious by the recent reactions of so many that it was not a matter of apathy, that there was so little attention paid when this plan was being carried out. It was because people were just not aware of the ramifications and details that involve so many more residential units being permitted. The residents of this town have a long history of fighting to protect our quality of life that is largely defined by our low-density community. You had very few people at your early meetings about this, and no one at the single workshop held about this issue. In hindsight, and given the outcry by so many, since the details were shared mostly by social media, you have no choice but to conclude that the city did not provide sufficient notice to the public when the measures of such magnitude were being taken. By now the residents are aware, and many are outraged and feel betrayed. The town is once again deeply divided, often pitting neighbor against neighbor. By not truly striving for sufficient publicity and notice for resident involvement and consensus, you have helped create the turmoil and mistrust we have today. So it comes down to this. Will you, as our elected representatives, have the courage and loyalty to the residents to admit that the process was deeply flawed? Will you have the courage to act by rolling back all the measures that increase density and start all over? Will you have the courage to then include the residents in the planning and decision-making process? It's all about having the political and personal courage to do the right thing. Just do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other day. My name is Maggie Abreu. I've lived in this beautiful community for 25 years. I've raised 2 amazing boys, 21 and 17. And I love this community because it's what I think of Old Town America. I came to this country at the age of 7 in 1967, and I am very proud to call myself a citizen of this city. However, I am not very proud to think that all of this was done without, like the gentleman said, appropriate notification to all of us. I think what makes us special is low crime, great demographics, family members that have through generations raised their families in this community. And I think what we're trying to do is not about beautification. What we're trying to do is to move things around in a certain way to make it look like it's going to be really pretty, but at the expense of changing demographic of rentals. It's nothing against rental apartments, But rental people are transient. They come and they go. There's no tax investment in this community when you're transient. If you're telling me you're going to put high-end condos, maybe they'll pay taxes. They'll have an association. They can control what happens in that building, but not rentals. They'll come and they'll go. So in my opinion, that's not why I moved here 25 years ago. And in my opinion, we elected all of you to support us. You are service of us. And we hope, like he said, that you will roll it all back. We can start all over again, and we can find a joint way of everybody being happy. You guys happy, the community happy, the developer happy, and we can find a happy medium to join everybody again. This is not working for me. Thank you very much.
My second meeting, I was here last month. I wasn't here the month before. But as I see it, this is a very confusing subject. I sat through last month's meeting. I think we have two issues here. I think we have the redevelopment of the Hook Square area, and I think we are talking at the same time about the redevelopment of the Central Business District. I have a funny feeling that we're being asked to make changes in the Hook Square area under the cover of the Central Business District. And I, for one, want to know now. I'm very curious. I don't see how we can make any decisions on anything when we don't know what we're being asked to do. I want to know who is the developer who is the purchaser of the Hook Square property, and what are they asking of the city? What are they expecting of us? I don't see how we can address any subject unless we know what their plans are and what they expect from us.
Thank you.
Well, that's my first part of the question. My second question is, are you prepared to reveal the purchasers of Hook Square property?
We'll talk about it when we discuss everything up here. I'm not going to debate.
We asked the same question last month, and we got no answer.
Okay.
And it's pretty clear that the city has been in communication with the developers. You have a whole list of variances you want to make in that property, and you just didn't dream them up overnight. They've come at the request of the developer.
We'll talk about that when it's time to talk about it.
So we can't play stupid for too long.
But we're going to discuss it. We'll talk about it and give you.
We expect that of you.
I said the last meeting I support it, and I will support it again. Thank you.
Good evening, council, ladies and gentlemen of Miami Springs. My name is Felix Guardiola, and I reside at 116 Palmetto Drive. I'm going to read a letter that I just recently sent to all the members of the council a couple hours ago. So I will read this statement. Dear council, we are in the last inning of a very contentious and uncomfortable situation for all residents and council members alike. Plenty of misunderstanding, misinformation, lack of information, apprehension, finger pointing to go around. I know I share in part of this mess. From the residents' perspective, we hear not enough information was given to us in a timely manner. We were not included in the decision-making process. From the council and the city, we hear plenty of announcements were made. We had council meetings and no one showed up, etc. We can go back and forth until we're exhausted, and we are, all of us, and nothing will be accomplished. What I do know is that by an overwhelming majority and sentiment, at the last council meeting of December 10th, 2018, and the forum that Councilwoman Mitchell attended was any indication, the residents of Miami Springs have spoken loud and clear and are vehemently opposed to this entire project. I'm not going to go into the specifics. This has been discussed back and forth. We all know what they are. This is by far the single most important decision we as a community will decide on. The decision we make tonight will have a lasting impact on our community that will be here long after all of us are gone. So what now? Where do we go from here? What is the right course of action? I propose, 1, we stop this project ASAP and regroup. 2, we go back to the pre-gateway code prior to the FAR, change from 1.0 to 1.7. Reach out to the residents in a manner similar to what we witnessed last Wednesday at the rec center, when on a one-day notice, 40 to 45 residents showed up. I didn't see any call from the council or from the city prior to these meetings that we were holding something for the city, okay? And I'd be more than happy to assist in this process. 4, allow the residents the opportunity to have an input in their city. And 5, explore the possibilities of making this town an example to the rest of the greater Miami-Dade County what a real community is. I know that it's late in the game. However, as the saying goes, it's not over until the fat lady sings. I trust you will hear what your constituents have expressed and do what is right for us, Miami Springs, and for you. We're counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. Rogelio Madan, 224 Lenape Drive, third generation lifelong resident. I live in the house my grandfather bought in 1958. My parents live 2 blocks away, and my sister and her husband 4 blocks away, so I love this community. I'm also a city planner, and I've gone to every single meeting regarding this item. I was late to the last meeting, so I asked my father to read a letter on my behalf. But today I just want to say I've gone through the changes that are proposed. I understand them. I think they're good. It makes it easier to provide parking for the area. At some point, the city may want to consider putting no overnight parking signs to make sure that the residents that are going to be living here don't utilize the parking that's intended for the commercial uses. I like the changes regarding how parking has to work. The changes for the ground floor for commercial, I think that protects the intent of requiring active ground floor uses while still allowing for the flexibility of providing for colonnades, perhaps breezeways, and other areas where there can be outdoor dining and outdoor seating for residents to enjoy. I like all of the criteria that was incorporated before that ensures that this is going to be a nice building. And to me, that ensures that we're going to get quality tenants living here, because you're not going to make an investment to have housing that's not going to draw high either sale prices or rents. I don't know what the intent is to do with the property. I like the changes that require this to go to the planning board. I serve on the planning board, so I look forward to reviewing. However, I think there should be a discussion item sent to the planning board to look at these items so that we're aware of what's going on and how we're expected to review these items. So maybe just send a letter with the adopted ordinances to the planning board so that we can overlook them. Perhaps if there's any appetite, some additional recommendations can be made. I do think that there should be one other thing considered for the ordinance that I was in talking to residents that they like the scale, the one-story scale fronting Curtis Parkway, where Sabores is, fronting the circle. And perhaps something that could be considered is that above the first floor, that there be a setback perhaps 20 to 30 feet. That'll push the mass of the building back towards the theater property, keeping the low scale along the frontage. But that's just my recommendation. I'm not married to it, but just something to throw out there for consideration in the future. And I also think that in the future, land amendments to the comprehensive plan and land development regulations should go to the planning board for recommendation. That is a common practice where I work as a city planner for Miami Beach. It was done where I worked before in the city of Miami. I know Miami-Dade County does the same. There are several smaller cities that don't do it. There's no legal requirement for it. but it is a best practice that the city may wish to consider and implement in the future. So that being said, I support this project. I support changes here. I went to one of the last shows at that theater when I was 4 or 5 years old, and it's been vacant since then. I know they tried putting a performing arts theater and it didn't work. They tried putting a banquet hall and it didn't work. It's a tough space to work with, has no windows, the floors are angled, so there's really not much that you can do with that site except redevelop it. And one of the other alternatives, if you had not done anything, they could have built a box. They could have demolished it, put a grocery store, which would generate tons of traffic, put an office, which would generate a lot more traffic than a residential structure. Mixed-use buildings have been proven to encourage walking, to encourage reductions in traffic. Residential uses generate a lot less traffic than the alternatives that could have been put there. So I support this, and I support all the requirements for the traffic studies. And so that's it.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Elsa, and I live at 98 Canal Street. I'm here tonight really, I've listened to what all was said, and I'm here tonight really to talk to you about transparency. And transparency, I feel, you violated it to us. It's just like our morals. You've taken them away from us. You no more, can you put out anything printed on paper? No more can a senior citizen go to the clerk's office and have somebody go over how to get it off the internet. The things that are going on here is that everything is electronic, and just like if you watched 60 Minutes last night, there's going to be 40% of you lose your jobs, okay? By this artificial intelligence. And I say we have to go back to some of the original ways things were done here. Print the agenda, have it in the lobby, do some advertising about the hearings and all of that. Don't try to have a website, and just because you have a website doesn't mean I can watch a city council meeting if I don't have internet. If I have channel 77, I can't watch a city council meeting because I have AT&T. So what are you giving us with this guy and this camera? Nothing. And there's a lot of people like that. And I really think that you need to get all of us in the loop of things. It's not, and so we can be transparent and know what's going on. The way it is now, you have the city attorney talking about 36th Street, talking about this house and this building and that, and then we have now, if you follow what this last guy said, we can just start over again. But you know what? There's no transparency for us, the people. And that's like our morals, and you violated them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Aldo Laguido. I've been Miami Springs resident for 50 years.
Where's your hat today?
Over there. Anyhow, I know many of you council members, and I ask you to really, really think this, because the reason why Miami Springs is unique is it may be kind of cliche and old-fashioned, but the little oasis in the middle of the city. Oases are oases because they're rare, and once they're gone, you never get them back. Perhaps we could look at this at a compromise and have the oasis and perhaps, progress. I'm not against progress and things, so maybe we could discuss a compromise, something like what we did over there on the property where Poinciana Motor used to be, between the Public Works, where you have something a little bit scaled back. So what I'm thinking is I raised my kids here, Rose, 2 boys. We like Miami Springs because it's quiet, safe because the police keep us safe. You knew you didn't go 30 miles over. You stayed on the speed limit because you're going to get a ticket. So it was a safe place for your kids to play and everything. So I ask you to really, really think of this. A lot of you members have been here over 50 years living in the Springs, and remember what's unique about it. Perhaps we could find a middle of the ground where we could have the progress we need for the downtown area and keep that unique oasis of Miami Springs, because once it's gone, it'll never come back again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I came to the Springs in the year 2000. I raised my son Justin and my daughter Alyssa. I always, when I have some situation like this, I always like to hear their insight. Like I always talk to my kids. What do you think about this? Politics, whatever. And when I talk to them, that's why he's here today, and I talked to my daughter Alyssa that she's not here because she's in Syracuse University. The one thing they told me is, my God, they're going to destroy the city. I am pro, let's change that area. Like I was talking, we talked with Miss Mitchell last Tuesday. It's very nice for us to change the area, but what are we going to bring to the city? That's going to be on you guys. Like we look around Miami Springs and we go, oh, this is what this mayor did and what this, mainly the mayor, Mr. Bain, it's going to be on you. In a couple years, 10, 20 years, people are going to look back and go, oh, he did amazing. This was amazing for the city. But really, what are we going to do? When he was talking about transparency, I thought about that. I think I am a dental hygienist, and as many know, I'm married to Dr. Garcia, which is a dentist here in the city. The first thing we do with our patients is nobody can go to our practice and say, we didn't tell them what they needed, what it's going to cost. We like to have transparency, and I think that's one thing all of us are upset about, that you guys are not telling us how is it going to look. That's one thing we're talking about. Listen, I would like that area to change because it looks awful. But what are you guys are going to do? And another thing is you guys are going to bring a lot of rentals there. I mean, I call, okay? I live in South Royal Point, Siena. To go to my husband has the office right next to Cozy Corner. Every time I'm going to around, sometimes even in the middle of the day, first of all, there's no parking there. I have a video Friday at 11 o'clock, no parking in that area. Another thing is around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, sometimes I go to the house for something, I have to call the police. They must know me there by my name and my last name because I'm always calling the police. What's going on? I cannot, they block that area all the time, so what's going to happen with traffic? That's another situation that we need to, you guys, I think, as politicians, and remember, if you guys make it, this is how you are going to be seen for, people are going to look back and go, oh, look what they did. It's not going to be my name. It's going to be you guys. You guys are going to be in the ballot next time. All these people, by the way, this is only 5%. Every person that I spoke to in the practice on Friday was against it. A lot of them are not here because most of them have kids, have things to do. Like I got here late because, of course, I was with the patient and we have to work. This is what's going to happen. In 10, 15 years, people are going to look back. Like some people go, oh, look at all these motels we have here. A mayor did that. People are going to go, always say, oh, my God, look what he brought. This is going to be on you guys, not on us. What did you do to our city? I work on Doral. It took me 45 minutes. Today, I work on Mondays there to get here. People are, like, refer back to Doral. If you would pay me, I would not live in Doral. It's a disaster, okay? So what's going to happen in the morning when everybody's trying to leave this area? If you're going to put 200 units there, what's going to happen? Well, for now, it's going to be, what you have on your website, supposedly, it's going to start with 94, right? And then 20, how many?
No. Wait,
It says
we don't know, wait.
For sure.
I shouldn't have said anything. We'll go through it all.
That's what we need to know.
Okay.
This is what you guys, listen, since they were little, I always told them what's going to happen, what we're going to do as a family. You guys, you are the leaders. You are our parents. And really, if you look at it, this is what you're going to do. You're going to lead us. If you tell us what's going to happen, maybe you wouldn't have all these people upset here today. Maybe people would be fine. But you guys are like, everybody's like, they're acting really sneaky. They're not telling us what's happening. That's why I'm here today.
Okay.
And I'm here, like I said, because of my 2 kids. Okay. That actually, you must think the older crowd doesn't like it. No, the younger crowd doesn't want this disaster that supposedly you guys are going to do. Okay. I'm not sure. I think information is the most important thing. Thank you very much.
All right.
Good evening. 61-year resident of the city. Rogelio's my son. I wasn't going to speak
But I appreciate what the young lady just spoke, what she just said. However, I'm a guy that I want solutions. Don't come up here. I don't believe to come up here and say you said it was a disaster over there. It's terrible. Correct? Something has to be done. There's a lot of money in.
Wait, ma'am. Let him talk.
There's
You know,
there's a considerable amount of money involved that this city doesn't have to pay for something to renovate over there. If the city renovates something over there, it usually involves some type of something that it will involve the city. So you're going to create even more traffic with that kind of situation if you involve the city. Like I said, something has to be done, something intelligent, something that the traffic flow, the studies, the recommendations, all those take place. It can't stay the way it is. Something has to be done. We all have to use our heads, get our emotions out of this, crunch the numbers, and figure it out and get her done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody?
Maria Diaz. I totally agree something has to be done, but we have to go back to square one. Have transparency. Have the residents be involved and have a say-so as to what is going to be in that corner. And anything else, like this gentleman said, we really don't know what's behind the curtain because there has not been any transparency. Mayor, you just said it's not going to be, when the lady said 50 or 100 units. So we approved something that we really don't know how many units it's going to be?
I'll tell you that.
So then we do know.
All right, I'll just tell you straight. No, I don't know what the project's going to be.
So how can we approve something that we don't know what it's going to be?
All right, I'll wait. We are setting a template. We are setting a template through what possibly could be built there. It's no different than what happened in Poinciana where Bella Bakery is. We set a template. They put a proposal to do 22 apartments. They end up doing 12 townhouses. All we're doing is setting up a template of what can be built there and the possibilities. We're not dictating to what kind of a project can be put there. It's a mixed-use project, and that's all there is to it. And there's a lot of
so changes can still be done.
There's many amenities that they have to come forward with in order to get what they want and what they need to do. And they got to abide by our codes and everything. A lot of these things that were said so far have already been addressed within the ordinance, and maybe sometimes people just don't understand that part of it. But it has been addressed in many of the concerns that have been put forth here.
Has code enforcement been involved in any of this?
That's all I'm going to answer because I'm being unfair.
Because I have to change a door, and I have to basically sell my firstborn. We're going to change what our city is,
all right,
and we have nothing to say.
Okay. Anything
what
else?
Kind of traffic studies were done? Because as of now, that building is not there. And like that lady said, if any of you or any of us that travel through Hook Square between 4 and 6, unless you are planning on building a bridge, it's impossible to go through there. And another thing, elections are coming. We will find out how many are staying and how many are leaving. Good night.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Nestor Suarez, 550 Red Avenue, Miami Springs. Guys, I know you guys must be frustrated. I know you guys had the meetings for the Gateway Overlay District, and they were published. But to be fair to the residents, the understanding of the implications of what happened in those summer meetings didn't translate. FAR changing from 1.0 to 1.7, people don't understand what that means. Okay, and in addition to publishing and the things that you guys have to do to publish the information, part of it is reaching out to the community, and some of you guys have done that and reached out to the community, get feedback from the community. But as you can see here, people are not thrilled about the FAR increasing and the density in downtown increasing from 1.0 to 1.7. Now, specifically the residential aspect and the density, the amount of apartments that can go in, the amount of residential that can be added, and what that does to our community. Okay, look, I know you guys love the city. Okay, I'm not gonna, sometimes it's unfair. Sometimes some things are said. I know you guys love the city, and I try and do best, but I also understand where the folks are standing in. And I know you guys did everything's in the light, in the sunshine. There's nothing in the back door. I know you guys published everything in terms of what the changes were, but people did not. There's a bunch of legalese that goes in there, and the people don't understand what that is until you start showing, hey, there's a bunch of apartments that can go downtown. People go, what? And that's when the rubber hits the road. And that's when people say, wait a second, I'm not so crazy about that. Okay? And that's what you're hearing here. So I think it's time to understand that people are not crazy about the amount of apartments and residential that can go. Should downtown change? Absolutely. Okay, I think we all want downtown to change. Is traffic a problem? Absolutely. And there needs to be a separate conversation that's addressing traffic, because regardless of what we do, traffic's bad now, period. And it's going to get worse whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, whether it's office, whatever happens there, whatever someone decides, because someone could decide to put office space there, they could decide to do whatever. The issue with traffic needs to be addressed, because it's an old issue going back more than decades. Okay, but in terms of this specific project, there's this palpable frustration with folks that they're just, hey, they didn't know. And I know you guys, hey, we published everything. Hey, we did, and you're right, you did. But part of it is communicating in a way that people understand what's going on, and that did not happen until recently. And that's the frustration that the folks have. Okay, and I don't think it's fair to bash you guys or any of that, because I know you guys are doing everything and trying to do things right, trying to improve the city. And I think good-heartedly so. But people are not happy with this project and where this is going. And I think some feedback from residents in terms, and thinking of, hey guys, if we make these changes downtown, what's the different things that can happen? Not, well, we're going to change it, but we really don't know what can happen. Let's really think about how much density can, if someone decides to join properties together, which can happen, how many apartments can go downtown? How much density are we increasing? What are we doing to it? And is it okay? People like that? Great. But if not, let's reconsider, guys. Okay? Now, you got different options. I know tonight the issue is just the ordinance and changing mixed-use ratio. I understand there's changes now to the 40-foot depth, which I think is an improvement. I still think it should stick to a 2-to-1 ratio on the mixed use. But guys, this boils down to just communication, and just make sure that residents know what's going on, and more than just, hey, we published everything, we put it on the website, and we did our job. No, guys, it's communicating and making sure the residents really understood, and they did not understand what was happening with the Gateway Overlay District, and that's clear.
Hi, I've actually been a resident of Miami Springs as a child. I've lived here since 1992, right before Hurricane Andrew, and honestly, I fell in love with the city at that point. One, because I lived in Hialeah before that. I didn't even know who my neighbors were. After Hurricane Andrew, my neighbors on both sides actually came to feed us because we were kids. So you don't have that everywhere. And I know some people are saying, oh, you're bringing the passion to it, but that's what Miami Springs is about. It's about passionate residents. So I loved growing up here. I could walk out on the street and go for a walk and not have to worry, and my parents loved that about this city. Unfortunately, I had to move away when I got married because, it's kind of costly. And I was fortunate enough to be able to move back in 2015. And I can honestly tell you that I do not want Miami Springs to turn into another Doral. I literally worked in Doral today. I was 1.9 miles because I punched it into my navigation system from my house. It took me over 30 minutes to get home. Do you want that for us, for this little community, this little treasure in the city of Miami? This gold that's in this city? Because I know I don't want it. I know my parents who still live here don't want it, that couldn't be here today. I know my husband doesn't want it, and I sure as heck don't want that for my daughter. I want her to be able to grow up here and enjoy the wonderful things that I was able to enjoy. Do I agree that the circle needs a little refurbishment? Of course. Who doesn't? Everybody wants to see it thriving. I, for one, do a lot of my shopping here. I do my cosmetic stuff here and everything, and I would love to see it thrive. But we need to go a different route. We need to try to do a retail route, maybe going to different investors that would want to open retail shops, but not apartments. We have enough traffic as it is on that circle that I am absolutely against this project.
Thank you.
And you talk about a template. In this template, what is the vision for the number of units?
We'll discuss that when we get closer.
Well, thank you for your time.
I inherited my mom's house in the Springs. I did grow up here. I love the Springs. I'm really troubled with what's going on here. Not quite sure why this is happening. Anyways, I would first like to thank Councilwoman Maria Mitchell for listening to the majority of the residents and voting to keep the minimum of the square footage at 900. I'm disappointed with the rest of the council and the mayor. She was the only one that listened to us, and I really appreciate that. Again, being new to the Springs, and I'm now getting very, very involved. I really appreciate that. I would like to ask, moving forward, and I might be wrong, but I think the only thing on the table that's left is the ratio. I think everything else is done. I mean, the developers bought, paid, you know, because of the ordinance. I mean, they're going to build. Am I wrong? So I'm done. I mean, it's done. It's a done deal, right? Other than ratio. That's the only thing that's left on your plate to vote on. No one's answering me.
Ma'am, it's open forum, which means it's only one way. Then the council will speak and address
Oh,
everybody's
okay.
comments.
Okay, I'm sorry. Didn't realize that. Okay. Well, if I'm correct, please, please keep it at 2-1. Because if it does change, then it's going to be more apartments, less commercial. And if your goal is to better the circle with commercial, then you're defeating your purpose. I mean, that's how I see it. I could be wrong again, because again, I'm new to all this, but please keep the ratio to 2-1. Where Bella Bakery is beautiful. I mean, that's fine. So again, if that's the only thing we have to vote on, keep it 2-1. I am concerned with Public Works, how this is going to affect them, because that's more work for them, more work for the police department, you know, that has not been addressed. I asked that at the last meeting because I was here. I haven't heard anything about that. And hate to say it, but I'm disappointed with the captain. I asked for an email, never heard back.
I'm Carol Gordon, and I would just like to say I would like to see an architectural drawing of what the district would look like when you make all these changes. I think it's very important that we have a picture of what it looks like.
It feels weird hearing myself on a microphone. Excuse me, where's the lady that, she brought up a good point. Am I playing over the loudspeakers?
You're fine.
Oh, okay. She makes a good point. I've lived here my whole life, pretty much. I don't know anything else. And people like to live here. This isn't Doral. I went to school in Doral. people live. If I want to live in Doral with a bunch of apartments and everything, and a bunch of modern-looking apartments, I live in Doral. What keeps people coming here, well, the commodity that we have here is that, I mean, it looks like we're in the 50s, and that's the charm. It's this old Americana charm that keeps people coming here and wanting to live here, and that there's no. Now, yes, yeah, pretty much everybody kind of agrees that downtown needs to be remodeled. As a kid, I thought, wow, that theater is. I thought that you could actually watch a movie there. When I found that you couldn't, I was like, that's kind of a waste of space, you know. But yes, it needs to be remodeled. But it needs, if an architectural design, an architectural drawing would be amazing, because if it's gonna look, you know, in that Adobe or Adobe style that's we're famous for, or a new like that old Americana style, it's gonna look nice. But if it's gonna look like a modern apartment, like something you find in Doral, it's gonna look out of place. It's gonna look weird, and it's gonna drop our property values. It's gonna bring too much traffic, and there's no positives to it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Lauren Madden, and I've also been a resident here my whole life. From my understanding, that's what this whole ordinance was directed towards, implementing restrictions in the way things are built to make sure that they have that charm. Because as the ordinance was before, it could have just been a box, and they could have done whatever they want. But now they're saying, okay, it has to have a good style. It has to do this. They have to implement elements and things, which I think is really important for this town, because we want the revitalization. We don't just want developers to come here and do whatever they want. That's why all of these updates are really important. And I think that that hasn't really come across to a lot of people. I think that all of these things and the elements that are incorporated are requiring that. And I think that that's really important, because I want my downtown to look nice. I want my downtown to have life. I want other friends that can't afford to live here at the moment to be able to live here. And people also talking about architectural drawings. There aren't any plans yet. This is all incorporating what they can and cannot do to make sure when they do present plans, there is something that is good for the city, not just whatever they want to do. So we have to make sure that what they do bring forth is positive. And I think that all the ideas put forth, and a lot of them and everything, I think it's all really beneficial. So that's all. Thank you.
Just retired for 35 years as a teacher, and nobody has mentioned anything about the schools here. That is going to be a major problem if we have more and more residents here. Okay? Poor teachers with the increase of the schools for the classrooms and everything, and where our taxes is going to be, the education. The schools here is wonderful. The Miami Springs Elementary is wonderful now. And the teacher have a load with the big classes and everything. So we have to mention not only the traffic, not have to mention about everything, but also the education that is so important. Nobody mentions anybody. Nobody mentions anything about education. And that's very important too.
Mario Martinez. I've lived in the city for 40 years. You know, I know the people that own the property have a right to sell it. They have a right to build on the property. I think what most people are upset about is the fact that we're changing, you know, the ordinances. I mean, you look around the circle now, we got businesses parking their cars in the middle of Curtis Parkway. You know, they don't have ample parking for the stuff we have now. And all these other businesses we're going to bring in here, it's going to be worse. I personally feel that if you guys do your homework before you make the decision, get studies on infrastructure as far as water, sewer, traffic control. I also understand that the city doesn't even own that road out there. So what's going to happen later on if DOT comes in and says, hey, you know, this road's too small for the amount of traffic that's going through here, we're going to open up this road. And they could even take part of Curtis Parkway and make another lane, who knows. I just feel that you really need to do some homework before you make these decisions. The fact that they're going to build something, you know, it's pretty much a done deal. I can tell by looking at your faces. We're just worried about the ordinance change.
Really?
That's what we're worried about, the ordinance change. And one suggestion, just my personal suggestion, I've seen it done in other cities, is, you know, as far as posting for information, they put up billboards next to the property, right there leaving out of Hook Square, you know?
They did when they were looking for the cops, they put that huge sign in the circle. Why didn't you do that for the last meeting? Why didn't you do that in June?
You know, just put a sign and let everybody know, hey, listen, there's a proposed ordinance change for this property, and you know, then people, we're busy. I mean, I know you guys are busy too, but not everybody has time for social media. Thank you.
Thank you. I got a first and a second for discussion.
I have a question regarding the mixed-use ratio to Chris. For the property, and I believe it doesn't apply to, say, the theater property. We're using specifics, but say for the property near Hook Square, that long property at Hook Square, changing this ratio allows them to build more residential units.
Yes, that's correct.
About 10 to 15% more.
I don't really know the number, but it would definitely allow more residential units because they only had a parking deck, and rather than just build on top of the commercial space, they would also build atop the deck in some areas. So it would provide for more in the plans that we've seen, which again have not been submitted. But in theory, yes, that.
Up to the far of if they meet the criteria for the points, and they get all the points for all the features that of the 1.7 far of residential units.
And the same would be true along Canal Street, for example. Let's just use that example.
Correct.
If they were to amass those parcels, essentially they wanted to put a building up, like the Green Chiropractic building, it's possible that the residential component might extend beyond. So whether that equates to larger units or more units, essentially and that's why I made the comment, it's not necessarily about units, it's about residential square footage. How it gets chopped up inside becomes a business decision, and it's limited by the square footage minimum. And so, for example, on the Hook Square, we've only gotten preliminary feedback, but on the theater property, for example, the amount of building they're going to build doesn't seem to be changing with the change in the minimum square footage per unit. What it changes is how many walls they put up in between. And so, yes, you might go from 54 units to 50 units, but the occupancy of the building hasn't changed. It just meant you have more 3-bedroom units and more 2-bedroom units as opposed to more 1-bedroom units. So, but that is the case. You can now build essentially where you do not have commercial, which currently right now under the code, if you're going up 2 stories, you must build, think about it like a building. You go straight up, or proportionately, 10,000 square feet of, I'm going to use a round number, 10,000 square feet of commercial, and you're going to do 3 floors, you cannot exceed 20,000 square feet of residential. This would allow those numbers to be unshackled. You would have to provide the minimum amount of commercial that's being required. That is, from the building facade, 40 feet back, the entire width of the property, except for unless you have a driveway or something. The second floor could extend beyond that footprint, and a good example besides Hook Square property is a building like a Green Chiropractic, because that's more likely than not west of Curtis Parkway. That's the kind of building that potentially you can see if you can amass two parcels, maybe 3 parcels. After that, it just starts getting really chopped up, and it gets beyond. Right.
Okay, I got a first and second. We're voting on this section. Call a vote, please.
Vice Mayor Petrolanda?
So I'm sorry, we're voting on keeping it, correct?
Just like it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 to 1.
Yeah. No, we're voting
as written.
As written.
Okay.
Whole ordinance.
As
So.
written. No, we're not voting on the whole ordinance.
Or we're voting on.
We're not on this section.
On just
Yeah,
the
that's.
mixed ratio. Okay.
Can you clarify it for me, please?
Okay. The attorney can clarify. Again, the provision will read. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
We're going to keep it.
It says, the ground floor provision of the 40 feet along rights of way. The upper floors may be commercial. The addition of office, residential, or mixed use, and the mixed use ratio found in section 150.070 of the code shall not apply to the Gateway District. So those are the 3 elements in that section that are going to be added. The commercial, the addition of the office, and that these 2 sections will govern instead of the strict mixed use ratio of the rest of the CBD.
Right. You can do it separate, right?
Well, there's a motion.
Because
it's up to the council. There's
It's a motion. It's a motion to vote on.
Because you tie me down. To be honest, we've been talking back and forth about the ratio 2 to 1 for days and days, and I just feel like if we leave it 2 to 1, them or in the driver's seat come along. Right now, I don't think this is going to be a problem. Okay, as far as I think this project is coming along, it's not going to be a problem. But my concern is 2, 4, 5 years from now, what the property value might not be where it is now. Then we might have a problem if we eliminate the 2-to-1 ratio, and then they can just build anything. So that gives us the ability to later on they can come and do a variance. And if it looks good, 5, 10 years from now, then you can approve it. But if we eliminate it, we are out of the picture, and that's my problem with this one. That's why I would like to separate them, because I like to keep the 2-to-1 ratio. The other ones I'm okay with. The 2-to-1 ratio, I'm kind of against it.
All right, well, there's a first and a second.
And you have the second.
You have the second. You want to?
I guess
It's
I have
okay.
to.
I mean, you don't have to be in favor of the motion.
You make the
second.
motion?
Right.
Is there any further discussion?
No, sir.
Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Petrolanda?
No.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mitchell?
No.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. So we're going to go ahead now.
Honestly, no way.
We're going to go ahead now and vote on the whole shebang.
Motion
I
to
need a
move.
motion.
You got it, sir.
Motion to move to vote on the ordinance.
See you at election
Did I get
day.
a second? Did I get a second for the ordinance?
Let's start flooding the media.
You have the you have
I
mo-
have a first, but I don't have a second.
Who made the first? I didn't even hear it.
I did, Mara.
Okay, I second that.
And just for clarification, the changes in the current ordinance as read include that lofts are prohibited, loading and service shall be limited to side and rear properties along 36th Street, the inclusion of office, and the inclusion of any changes between first and second.
That's right.
Those were the inclusions by
Right.
Councilwoman Mitchell.
Right.
Yes.
That's all.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yep.
I got a first and second. Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Petrolanda?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mitchell?
No.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes.